Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Game Over Winnipeg. My name is Lyss. As always, I'm one of your hosts. Brady, not here today, probably, sleeping because it's almost midnight. But that's just the way the cookie crumbles when it comes to the West Coast games. So, wrapping up a 5-1 victory over the Vancouver Canucks tonight, the front half of a back-to-back that'll be finished off in Seattle tomorrow. Decent showing by the boys tonight. For those of you who are hanging out in the chat, we'll be nice and interactive tonight. I don't anticipate we'll be too busy on the chat front, seeing as, the time is nearing the next day. And I will not stop talking about it. I don't know the last time I voluntarily stayed up until like midnight. So these West Coast games are always a treat in that capacity, but it's kind of nice. I find that sometimes with the East Coast games and earlier games, you start earlier and sometimes you're like not home from work or school in time and you're like, oh my gosh, I have the whole evening ahead of me. I can't sit and watch hockey, but what better to do on a Saturday night? Before we get on with the show, a little quick word from our sponsors here. So think you know what way it's going to go? Make your bet with Sports Interaction. Whether it's World Cup, hockey, football, or basketball, Sports Interaction has you covered. Bet pregame, live, in play, or on one of our many prop bets. Sports Interaction makes it easy to deposit, play, and cash out. Join now and see all sports betting has to offer. Want to bet? Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. That's sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Man, I guess we're probably going to change the way that ad sounds in the next little bit. Last day of World Cup tomorrow. Obviously, that's going to be super exciting. Third place game today. Who are you guys pulling for tomorrow? I personally, I'd like to see Lionel Messi win a World Cup. I think it'd be, be nice to see him win. But again, not super into soccer. Let's talk about hockey. So, 5-1 win, obviously, very exciting, very happy for a lot of reasons. But I think we got to talk about the elephant in the room. The Vancouver Canucks are not very good. I was watching this game tonight and, there were a lot of things I liked about what the Jets did and there were a lot of really good parts of their play. But I thought that the Vancouver Canucks just looked a little rough out there. And I know we all know how the season started for them and all the different things that were going on there. But, looking at where they're at in the standings, the wins they have, some of their players are on pace to, have decent point totals and all those things. I thought they figured out some of their woes and all that kind of stuff. But tonight, this looked like a hockey team that is having a rough go and that people, that the players don't look like they're engaged. They don't look like they want to be there. And it was a bit of a rougher one out there. So, that was a big part, I think, of why the Jets were able to win. I think they did a lot of good things, but I think they were able to do a lot of the good things because the Vancouver Canucks were bad. So I think that that's something that, can't be ignored. And I'm really interested to hear what Kaya has to say on Game Over Vancouver right now. I'm definitely going to go back and listen to that tomorrow. Just because I want to know kind of what's going on in the minds of Vancouver Canucks fans right now. I've seen a couple, real funny jokes and whatnot on Twitter. I had to contribute a little bit with the domino meme. Some people think that, Bruce Boudreau might be on his last legs in the city there, and there's different speculations like that. I think that team just needs some form of a reset, some form of, I don't know, but they looked rough out there. So I think that can't be ignored when you talk about the Jets win tonight. And I want to talk about the good that the Winnipeg Jets had. I do. But I think, it must be said that the Vancouver Canucks, a little bit of a rougher team out there today. So, talking specifically though about the Jets, I liked a lot of what I saw from them, but kind of before the game even starts, I want to talk about some of the specifics of tonight. So, roster changes. I think that's a big piece of tonight. So, we got the news between last game and this game that two major players in the Winnipeg Jets are out with injury for extensive periods of time. Obviously, last game, we all saw Nate Schmidt go into the ice after that hit from Tanner Jeannot. That was a really rough one. And I don't know, I haven't seen, it might have been said somewhere and I didn't see it. I don't know if it was confirmed what the actual injury was, but Schmidt's going to be out for a few weeks. And then Blake Wheeler also sustained an injury last game, and he's going to be out for a few weeks as well with a groin injury. He's getting some form of surgery. So obviously those two players being in your lineup all season and then out within the split of a game, that's a big change. So obviously the Winnipeg Jets had to make some changes tonight to accommodate for those changes. First and foremost, we wish the best upon the injured players. I hope that they have, quick recoveries, and I hope that all of the players, associated in those injuries are feeling okay. Michael Eyssimont also was a scratch this evening. How do you guys feel about that call? I thought it was an interesting one. And it's similar to how I thought it was interesting to scratch AJF after playing him in the top six, how I thought it was interesting to scratch Sam Gagner after playing in the top six. It almost feels like they have their 9-10 lock forwards, and there's two spots that they're just rotating guys through, and they're like, okay, fourth line, third line, top six, healthy. Fourth line, third line, top six, healthy. It seems like they're just moving guys around. They did it with AJF. They did it with Harkins a little bit. They did it, they're doing it with Eyssimont right now. They did it with Gagner. I just feel like that's kind of the way it's been going. I think that Michael, has had some good showings, and he wouldn't have been my choice, I don't think, to scratch tonight. But who did draw into the lineup? Carson Coleman got to play his first game as a Winnipeg Jet tonight, and he got to play on a line with, Mark Scheifele and Cole Perfetti, which probably isn't what he was expecting. An undrafted player, getting put on waivers and picked up by the Winnipeg Jets. I'm sure he wasn't expecting to play on their top line within, 72 hours of being picked up off of waivers. But you know what? I didn't think he had an awful game. I don't know much about the player, so I don't want to make any huge, there's a word I'm looking for here, reservations on what I do or don't like about the player. I don't know him super well, so I'm willing to give him a chance, as I am with any other player. I thought he was okay tonight. There were a couple chances that, man, oh man, I wish he would have been able to capitalize on. Again, a guy who was put on waivers by a team midway through the season is likely not a long-term solution in the top six. But, oh well, they tried it for tonight. It was fine. It is what it is. I didn't think that line was anything to write home about by any means. But speaking of that line, someone in the chat says, the more I watch Perfetti, the more I like his game. Just needs to get his shots more on net. I thought Cole Perfetti was a really fun player to watch tonight, and we all know the one particular chance that we're talking about, the chance, right? Cole Perfetti had this beautiful setup from Josh in front of the net, and he just biffed it. And if Cole Perfetti can start shooting a little bit more and making those shots, accurate and, getting some good shots on net, man, oh man, that's going to become a dangerous player. His vision is so elite, and he's always looking for just the best passes and these fantastic passes. He can just thread that needle with a beautiful, pass across to a player, any player. And if he can include shooting in that puck movement, his puck movement is great, but it tends to be passing puck movement. I'd love to include a little bit more shooting in that puck movement, because man, oh man, is that player good. And I was really hoping to see him get a couple, looks at that tonight, especially he had some decent chances to shoot and score and whatnot. But thought that was a fun player to watch tonight. And not Blake Wheeler, Mark Scheifele, just forever associated in my brain, the two of those guys. Mark Scheifele has been so fun to watch lately, and I thought that continued into tonight as well, where he's just, I'm thinking of one particular instance. He's coming in, he's up on the half wall, right, and just there's pressure on him. He spins, he turns, he controls that puck. When this player wants to play, Mark Scheifele is an elite hockey player. So fantastic. And yeah, Cole Perfetti definitely was a setup guy in junior. I don't know if you guys remember specifically the World Juniors, his first year he was on the team. They had him controlling the power play from the wall, and oh my goodness, it was just so fun to watch him get to pass to the most elite players of his age and just control that power play. And the vision's insane. We all know it's there, and it's been awesome. So, speaking of Cole Perfetti, he got a look on the top power play unit tonight. So that was super awesome. I was really excited to see that. Let's not talk about PP2. I don't know if you guys saw the tweets from morning skate and stuff like that. They were rushing the power play units, and with Blake Wheeler being out, Cole Perfetti got the promotion to the top power play unit. Yay! However, you might be asking, who does that leave on the second power play unit for the Winnipeg Jets? And I would say to you, don't ask questions you don't want to know the answers to. At least according to, I want to say Mike McIntyre, likely on Twitter this morning from Morning Skate, he had Pionk, Stenlund, Lowry, I don't even know, and Capabianco is one of the players on the second power play unit. Yeah. So maybe Morgan Barron was the other one. I don't even remember. Someone in the bottom six. We know that for sure. That was the second power play unit. I don't know how much ice time they saw tonight. I don't think it was much. So that was definitely something to see. They saw definitely the back half of a power play in the third period, I think it was. And it is what it is. This team is obviously short-staffed in a couple of areas, but that is besides the point. Power play 1, we finally got Cole Perfetti on power play 1, so let's talk about that. We've been all yelling for it for a while, and it was so funny. Very first power play of the game, I was so fired up. I was like, yes, we're going to get to see Cole Perfetti jump on power play 1 and do his thing, and they scored like very quickly into that power play. Can we talk about that pass from Pierre-Luc Dubois to Kyle Connor on that opening goal of the game? Oh my goodness gracious. Like, every time I see that chemistry between those players, I want to sign the $10 million contract, keep him here forever. I don't care. Like, it's not a secret. I love Pierre-Luc Dubois. I've always loved Pierre-Luc Dubois. He was my favorite player before. I liked him a lot as a player before he was drafted by the Columbus Blue Jackets, and I loved him as a player when he was with the Columbus Blue Jackets. For those of you who know me for a while, you remember how insane I was the day my two favorite players in the entire NHL got traded for each other. It was a whole thing, right? And we'll get into the extensive, story of why Pierre-Luc Dubois is so special to me another time. It's a story for another day, but that's besides the point. I want him here. I want him as a Winnipeg Jet. And every time I see that fantastic chemistry, particularly between him and Kyle Connor, I just want that duo to be a thing for the rest of their careers. Like, they're both like in their early 20s or mid 20s, I guess. Now we're all getting older. This pandemic has just changed my perception of age. But that could be a fantastic top duo in the NHL for years. Like, I think it's really important to look at some of the most fantastic players in the last few years and understand that even the best goal scorers and the best power forwards, they have some form of defensive ability. And even if it's not, in zone defense, they're able to forecheck. They're able to, maintain possession a little bit better. There are so many things that they're able to do defensively that help them with their offensive production, right? Like, Sidney Crosby is a great example of that. Like, it's super important that he's a very good 200-foot player, and we see that in a lot of elite players. Austin Matthews is a great example as well. Good defensively is really important, and I think that that's something that, including Pierre-Luc Dubois and Cole Perfetti on a line with Kyle Connor and improving in that capacity, that could be a really fantastic line for literal years to come. I know Perfetti's not playing with them right now, but I still want to see it happen when the Jets are healthy. We need to talk about the Jets being healthy, though. I was looking at, I don't remember the exact lineup from the opening night of this season, but even just counting off on your fingers, Blake Wheeler, Nikolai Ehlers, Saku Menelainen, Mason Appleton, every single right winger that the Winnipeg Jets thought they would have this year is not playing right now. The injuries on the right side of the Winnipeg Jets are getting worse and worse by the day. Nate Schmidt also, right, well, he's a left-handed defenseman who plays right defense, so just so happens, obviously, he's not a right winger by any means, but it's just nuts how this right side is getting more and more depleted and how difficult it is to internally recuperate that, right? Like the Winnipeg Jets were able to, and I fully commend them for coming out and winning this game, and for, coming through. Sorry, I got distracted by a message in the chat. Kishore says, did I miss the love fest around the Capabianca goal? No, it's coming. Don't worry. I need to work my way up to that one. It's similar to the Dylan DeMello goal from last game. We can't start off with the main course, we gotta work our way into it. But the Winnipeg Jets don't have two random top 6 right wingers just laying around internally in the organization, right? Like, they're dropping like flies, and full credit to the Jets for pulling off a win tonight, not just eking one out, right? Actually playing a good hockey game. And we talked about this at the beginning, right? We talked about how the Vancouver Canucks, are, maybe the quality of competition is something that's a little bit more. We don't need to get into that again. I talked about that. We've been over this. But I wrote down at the beginning of the game, like, listen, we can talk about it. My least favorite term, but I'll absolutely use it in this case. If the Jets can pull this out, this is an identity win, right? You have important players that come through and are hurt, and you have to make up for it. And players step into roles that they weren't expecting to have to play. And it's huge for the team's identity as a group, right? Like, you look at the jacket videos and all those things in the locker room. Like, it's important for these guys to step up when they need to step up. That's my segue. Stepping up when they need to step up. Kyle Capabianco. So we were talking a little bit before about the roster decisions going into this evening. And, a lot of people were screaming about Ville Heinola not drawing in. I was probably one of those people, because we know Ville Heinola, my pride and joy, of course. But Ville's been out sick this week. Like, he's had like the flu or something. So he's not been super well. And they brought him on the road trip, called him up on an emergency basis. I have a feeling that if he's feeling well, he will be playing tomorrow. But Kyle Capabianco steps in tonight. He hasn't played a game in a month. Dude scores a goal. We are in the era of our random defensemen scoring goals. Dylan DeMello last game, Cal Capabianco tonight, Brendan Dillon hat trick tomorrow. Bucket. But Cal Capabianco scoring a goal was huge, or as Kishore is saying in the chat, Kevin Capabianco, as we will now be referring to him as, was so funny. For those of you who are watching the Sportsnet call, or for those of you who weren't, pardon me, it was so funny. Cal Capabianco's goal was from like the point, right? It's a point shot. And, team starts cheering, and it's like the Mexican soccer call, right? Like when you say out the name of the person who scored, they're like, Kevin Capabianco. And I was like, so close, but not quite. It was so funny. So yes, Sportsnet will be calling him Kevin Capabianco, and so will I. But that goal was huge. Again, identity, right? Like, Cal Capabianco knew coming into the season that he was only going to play if he had to. He wasn't the Winnipeg Jets' number one choice to be playing in pretty much any scenario. And that's just the way that it is. Nathan Beaulieu was that guy last year. He understood that was his role on the team. It's nice for those guys when they're come in and they're able to contribute in that way. I, more than anyone, am not a huge proponent of looking at goals as the only thing as a contribution, obviously, especially with defensemen. I don't need Cal Capabianco to score for me to be like, oh, he's good. Or, on the other side, I don't need Cal Capabianco not to score for me to be like, he's bad. Trust me, I'll look at lots of other things and determine whether or not he's bad. But you're happy for the guy. Like, I don't know if you guys saw some of like his interviews and conversations and stuff. Like, seems like a really nice guy. So I was really happy that he was able to score tonight. And it was definitely the night of the interesting goal scorers, to say the least. Neil Pionk also getting a blast from the point. Another guy who's maybe not been having the most ideal season, very much in a different capacity than Capabianco, in the sense that Capabianco's been given the most limited role possible, while Neil Pionk's had a big role and been struggling, to say the least, in that large role, just as he did last year a little bit. His first year as a Winnipeg Jet, we're like, oh my, this guy's better than we thought he was going to be, and full credit to him. Like, I don't dislike Neil Pionk at all, but it's been a bit of a rougher year, so seeing him pot one, makes you happy. It's not the kind of thing. Capabianco, I had an internal moment of, that internal turmoil where you're like, oh my gosh, is my little Finnish boy not going to be able to play tomorrow because Cal Capobianco scored? That's not the case with Neil Pionk. That dude's not coming out of the lineup anyway, so please play well. I want him to see him do well. So that goal was fun. I was really happy for him. Sam Gagner also got a goal. Man, oh man, was that nice. That passing play before it was so gorgeous. Happy for him as well. Again, it's the kind of player that you want to see do well, especially with the team being so depleted in their forwards right now. You need guys who have the ability to step up. And he's someone who, he had a decent start to the season and then he really cooled off, and I thought he struggled, and like as I talked about before, we had some healthy scratch days for him, like just not been the greatest all around season for him. But as far as like actual ceiling / ability / all that kind of stuff, like he currently is one of the better options for the Jets to be playing in their top 6. Like he probably was the guy that I would have left with Connor and Dubois tonight, just because of how much the Jets are struggling with top 6 talent right now. So yay, good for him for scoring that goal. It was a great goal. He looked happy to score it. Like that's his 5th of the year. This dude can finish the year with like 15 goals or whatever. I will be thrilled. However, if he finishes with less because he was demoted to the 3rd or 4th line because we had better alternatives in the top 6, I will be much happier with that. But we'll cross that bridge when and if we get there. I want to shout out Nick. For those of you who don't know, this is a very niche thing. My favorite meme format right now is the Twitter so-and-so you are something. I love that tweet. So all of the, Ville Heinola, you are a Manitoba Moose. Like they're so funny. So, Nick had a Connor Garland, you are a Winnipeg Jet tonight. And absolutely, I was having a chuckle. It's like, man, like leave someone there. Load Connor Garland on the plane, the 28-minute flight to the Climate Pledge Arena, which hilarious to me. 28-minute flight from Vancouver to the Climate Pledge Arena. No one needs to take a 28-minute flight. Let's not go there though. But the Winnipeg Jets need to make a trade bad, because especially now that we know the timelines of some of the injuries, like they're going to be without Wheeler and Ehlers for the next month at minimum, if not likely longer. Bring someone in. I'm begging you to bring someone in. But back to my point about the strange goal scorers tonight, need to give a massive shout out to AJF. The Janssen Fjallby goal, that shot was gorgeous. For those of you who weren't watching, comes in on the right side. I would say 9.5 times out of 10, he's shooting that puck 3 feet off the net. Beautiful shot tonight. Went in. Attaboy. Very happy for him. So just needed to particularly shout out those goals tonight, because I was really happy for them. And we're going to go off on like a little thing here, but I really struggle with people looking at isolated plays like goals and using them to vindicate their like opinions or like prior thoughts and that kind of stuff, because of how small the sample of an individual goal in this case is in the grand scheme of things, right? So for example, if you're the kind of person who thinks that Neil Pionk is having a fantastic season and someone comes up to you and is like, I disagree. I don't think you can look at it tonight and be like, well, he scored, so that means he's good. I strongly disagree with that type of assessment, and it's the kind of thing that people could say about Cal Capobianco. Oh, he shouldn't have played tonight. Well, he scored. I hate that, because Cal Capobianco played, I can look it up right now. How many shifts did he play? How many minutes did he play? He played 17 minutes tonight. He played 17 minutes, and that goal maybe took up like 5 to 6 seconds if you want to generously include the play leading up to it, of his ice time, right? So one goal, and you can look at the odds of that goal going in every single time. Like there's so much luck that goes into hockey that it's so hard to generate actual tangible results from small samples. We know that. It's like, it's a fact. It's not an opinion. So for someone to like vindicate their thoughts on, oh, this is why Capobianco should have played tonight is because he scored, just to me is a little bit of a lazier argument. Same thing with Neil Pionk. Oh, he's good because he scored. It's just, it's not enough to me. So that kind of contradicts my earlier point where I was like, I'm really happy for these guys because goals are really important and it's great that they were able to score. I am happy for all of them, like genuinely. Like I like to see guys who don't score often score. It's my favorite thing. I sometimes crack a smile when Kyle Connor scores. When they say how many points Pierre-Luc Dubois has, I'm like, okay. But when Janssen Fjallby scored tonight, I cheered. Like, I was so happy. I love it for these guys. But it doesn't, tip the scales enough based on an assessment. Some of the guys who scored tonight I do think are good hockey players and have been having good seasons, but one goal will never tip the scales from bad to good or vice versa, or one giving up one goal, if you want to look at it from the flip side, right? If a player doesn't score, how do you know that the goalie wasn't playing outstanding? How do you know that, we can get into this whole thing. This is why advanced analytics exist, right? Is because you understand that goals are a little bit more random and they're not the most predictive stat in the world. So I don't think that my opinions on any of these players tonight change. I still think that Janssen Fjallby's a fourth liner. I still think that Neil Pionk is having a little bit of a rougher go. But I'm happy for the guys. Kishore says in the chat, the important question is, which jersey would you have thrown in the ice tonight if you were a Canucks fan? Great question. For those of you who weren't watching, there was a stretch, it was at the end. I want to say it was after Vancouver even scored a goal. Bo Horvat scored a nice little power play tip in partway through the third, near the end of the third. And then someone threw a jersey on the ice during the play. I say I'd be throwing a Bo Horvat jersey. I can't even say his name. I would be throwing a Bo Horvat jersey on the ice. That was a mouthful for no reason. That was a 3-syllable name, but it's been a long time of just talking to myself. But that team is in rough shape, and when you hear the comments like you heard from him about their captain, it's not what you love to hear as a fan. And I understand. Bo Horvat's frustrated. We're all frustrated. I get it. That's probably whose jersey I would have thrown on the ice. Maybe. That being said, I am a broke college student who works part-time, so any asset that I have that's over $30, you will not see me wasting in any capacity. So, but those are kind of my general thoughts on the evening. Obviously, it's late. I have only mentioned that 8 times so far. So, there will be evenings when I'll get a little bit more in depth and, specifically team play. I was definitely, talking a little bit more about the individual players tonight, but sometimes it's fun. To celebrate the small wins like we see with individuals scoring goals who don't always get to score goals. Once again, shout out to my boy Kevin Capobianco. I'm going to call him that now, by the way. Kyle's a bad name. Kevin's a much more, it's a nice name, and Kyle Capobianco seems like a nice guy, so we're just going to call him Kevin. I like to celebrate the small wins for these guys, and sometimes in the grand scheme of things, they're big wins for people. That being said, we can look at, how good are the Vancouver Canucks? Doesn't really matter because you get your 2 points, and that puts you in a great spot in the division, and, a win's a win. And it's also important to win these games when you're coming into a game with a depleted roster after losing 2 really key roster guys to injuries. It's important to win these games, and I'm really happy that they did. I thought that Josh Morrissey looked good again tonight. I thought that Dylan DeMella, once again, we saw him on a play in the crease. I am here for the active, offensive Dylan DeMello. It was definitely a lot of fun to watch the Jets win. It's fun to watch your team score. It's fun to watch. Maybe this is going to sound kind of morbid to me, but it's kind of fun to watch the life suck out of the team that you're playing against, because you're just putting your foot down, and it feels good. It gives faith in your team that you're watching. So I thought in that capacity it was a lot of fun. I am hoping that tomorrow they maintain some energy. They have a couple guys in the press box that they can cycle in, notably Ville Heinola. That will be a storyline of tomorrow if he gets in. We know the carousel. He's been flipping around and around in the AHL and the NHL for years. let's see if he gets in tomorrow. I'm hoping that he's feeling well enough to. If that's the case, I don't want him playing just for the sake of him playing. If he's not feeling well, don't make him play. But that's besides the point. That should always be the case, right? If a player is sick, don't make them play professional hockey. But we'll see how tomorrow goes. It's not too far of a travel for the boys, which is nice. Hopefully they have some time to reset tomorrow. Brady will be joining you tomorrow evening, so you guys will break down the game with him. Definitely jump in the chat with him. Brady loves the chat. He's got all his monitors and his setup down home, so he'll be active, he'll be chatting, he'll be responding to you guys, so that'll be good. And we'll be back with several games this week. I have a couple of fun guests lined up, some out of market guests, which will be exciting. I like having out of market guests because it's fun to hear other perspectives and all those kinds of fun things. So looking forward to the next couple games, looking forward to wrapping up before the holidays and seeing, if the Jets can maintain this good positioning going forward. And then New Year, we'll see if the Jets can keep this up and, set themselves up for success for the trade deadline and for the playoffs. So once again, thank you so much, everyone, for coming and joining. For those of you who are listening after the fact, which I assume will be more of you for this one, because once again, it's so late. I have an exam tomorrow. I have an exam in like 10 hours. So I'm going to go to bed. And for those of you who are in the chat right now, once again, thank you so much. And I will see you all next game.
Game over! Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.